Good. I'm Stephanie Singer. I'm the Director of Arts and Ideas here at the Jewish Community Center of San Francisco. And on behalf of the JCCSF and our partners, American Friends of the Parent Circle Families Forum, the Kitchen, and the New Israel Fund, it's my honor to welcome you to this evening's program, Holding On to Humanity, Bereaved Israelis and Palestinians for Peace, with Mor Enon, Leila Al-Sheikh, Tal Moore, and Sam Moganim. I'm so happy to see you all here. Such a fantastic turnout for this timely conversation. Thank you so much for coming. You really are a sight to behold. Some gratitude to the entire JCCSF for the hard work and dedication and for pulling together each day to make us shine. Our Roots and Culture team, event operations, production, program support, marketing, security, our board of directors, and our generous donors. Our sincere thanks to our magnificent community partners, without whom tonight's conversation would simply not be possible. American Friends of the Parent Circle Families Forum, the Kitchen, and New Israel Fund. I'd like to give them a round of applause. We're also deeply grateful to the following community partners for helping to spread the word about tonight's special program and for being together in person and in community. Sha'ar Zahav, Congregation Shereth Israel, Congregation Beth Shalom, the Interfaith Center at the Presidio, Congregation Emmanuel, J Street, and Friends of Standing Together. You truly wrapped your arms around this program with the metaphorical hug that it needed, and proof is in the turnout. Thank you. So here's how it's going to work tonight. We're going to have about a 45-minute conversation with Mor and Leila, moderated by Tal and Sam, after which we're going to open it up to questions from you. Each of you should have received an index card and pencil when you walked into the hall. If you didn't and you'd like one, please raise your hand and we'll get you. Erica will help you out. Please write your question down and pass your card to your right that way. And we'll collect the cards about halfway through, and we'll do our best to get to as many questions as time allows. You won't be graded on your penmanship, but we greatly appreciate legibility. Thanks. And after that, to close out the evening, we'll hear a few words from Orly Bine from NIF and Lior Ben-Tzvi from the Parent Circle Family Forum, who will then invite us all to join them in the atrium for a delicious dessert reception provided by Loquat Bakery. Please enjoy compliments of our wonderful partner, the Kitchen. And now it's my honor to introduce Naomi Bardak, who will say a few words about the Kitchen Shared Society projects, and will introduce our guests. Naomi, come on out.
Thank you so much, Stephanie, and hello and welcome to everyone. I'm Naomi Bardak. I'm a member of the Kitchen Shared Society group, and I just want to start off by saying thank you so much to the JCCSF for hosting this event, and then give you a little bit of information. The Kitchen Shared Society group, we're the anchor group for initiating this event, but of course, huge shout out and thank you to the co-sponsors, who Stephanie has already named, and so many of the people who came from those communities. And I just want to thank everybody for being here on a Wednesday night. It's a ray of light in a very dark time, and it's a true testament to the community's desire to band together to promote dignity and coexistence in Israel and Palestine. The Kitchen Shared Society group is part of the Kitchen SF. We're a non-denominational congregation in San Francisco. We meet in the San Francisco Friends School, which is a fact that will become more relevant in just a minute. And in early 2024, in response to the events of October 7th and the ensuing war, a group of members from the Kitchen formed the Shared Society Project to support initiatives that unite Israelis and Palestinians focused on peace and countering the dehumanization that is all too prevalent and easy to reach for. The Parent Circle Family Forum is therefore incredibly aligned with that mission. They're a joint Israeli-Palestinian organization made up of more than 800 bereaved families from the conflict that started even before October 7th. Their common bond is that they have lost a close family member to the conflict. Instead of choosing revenge, they have chosen a path of reconciliation. They're a peace organization that models constructive dialogue around shared values. And even since October 7th, the staff, members, and thousands of participants are still committed to peace and a way forward that centers around empathy and humanization. The event tonight is meaningful to me in two ways. This is the second time I've attended an event, actually, with the Parent Circle. They were scheduled to present here at the JCC about a week after October 7th. They debated at that time about whether to still hold it, but chose to do so, and I ended up attending Summit spontaneously and was deeply, deeply grateful, along with many of the others who attended, who all of us were still reeling in shock, to find voices that lifted up people's humanity in such a painful time. The event resonated for me long afterwards and still resonates and is the inspiration for them coming tonight and our planning tonight's event. Secondly, Hirsch Goldberg Polin, who was killed in the Hamas tunnels in Gaza in August after being held hostage, was a cousin of ours, a kid who I knew growing up and whose parents I know and love. The intention of the Parent Circle and other groups that refuse to dehumanize is something that I hold on to when things feel dark. Thank you so much. They're in the wings waiting to come out, but thank you so much for the work that you do that brings the glimmer of light to me and to others. So now to introduce you to our speakers and co-facilitators. From the Family Circle, Layla has been a Parent Circle member for 8 years. She's based in Bethlehem in the West Bank, and she is a bereaved mother who lost her 6-month-old son. Moore is based in Tel Aviv. She joined the Parent Circle just a year ago after she lost both of her parents on October 7th, 2023. She quickly became an active member and is now the Israeli co-director of the board. And finally, our incredible co-facilitators of the night are Sam Moganam and Tal Moore. In the small world of San Francisco, it turns out that Sam and Tal's children both went to the San Francisco Friends School, where the kitchen meets for services and also where my kids went, and which is part of the inspiration for how they facilitate tonight. They're terrific contributors also to the food community in San Francisco. Sam Moganam is a second-generation owner of Buy Right Family of Businesses and the co-founder of 18 Reasons, which is a nonprofit community education space, and Tal Moore is the owner of 4 Barrel Coffee and Loquat Bakery in San Francisco. Sam is an American-born Palestinian, and Tal Moore is an Israeli-born Jew. They're longtime friends and colleagues in food. And since 10/7, they've been hosting weekly gatherings of Palestinians and Jews, using the Quaker meeting process to facilitate better recognition of each other's humanity. We are so grateful that they agreed to facilitate, and so grateful to Layla and Moore for coming, bringing their intention and wisdom to this conversation, all 4 of them. So please join me in welcoming Layla, Moore, Sam, and Tal.
Welcome. This is kind of incredible. I can't believe how many of you showed up. Give yourself a round of applause. You all took the time out to be here and to be here with us, and we're humbled. And in sticking with our Quaker practice that we've been doing on a weekly basis, we'd like to just start the evening off with a minute of silence. During this minute of silence, we'd love to ask you to reflect on how you may open your heart and open your mind so that you can take in what you hear tonight, and to take it in deeply, and then to take it with you. And to bring and help facilitate and bring about change in the world. And so we're just going to take a minute, and it will be a full minute. It might seem like eternity for some of you, but we're going to take a minute just to be quiet.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Thank you, Naomi, for the introduction, and JCC, the kitchen, the sponsors. Special thanks to the Parents Circle Family Forum, Layla, Amor, and Sam for being here. And for all of you for showing up in this space. We are grateful for your courage and your willingness to show up in a space that might challenge your beliefs. Your respectful attention and active listening here is a gift to us, and it's a gift to everyone involved. I'll start out by saying that Sam and I are going to talk for 10 to 12 to maybe 15 minutes, but we're going to try and keep it as brief as possible to tell you a little bit about the work that we do in San Francisco, to tell you a little bit about ourselves, and then we're going to introduce our amazing guests and hear from them and hear their stories. I'll say that Sam and I are not professional interviewers or facilitators by any stretch of the imagination. Being in this space and moderating this conversation is pretty intimidating for us. But we're letting ourselves model the vulnerability we feel is necessary to be embraced as human. And in no way can our vulnerability compare to Layla and more. Their story is unfortunately not unique. They represent thousands of women and men, children who have suffered needless grief and pain. And your presence here tonight is an expression of that love. And we ask that you honor the pain they have endured by opening your hearts and your minds and putting yourselves in their shoes and the shoes of the thousands of others who are suffering, and to listen. So I'm an Israeli Jew who immigrated to the Bay Area and grew up in Cupertino when I was 5 years old. Sam is an American-born Palestinian whose parents are from the West Bank cities of Ramallah and Bethlehem. We're business owners in San Francisco. We love cooking. We love feeding people. This evening is a form of consumption. And we ask that you allow all of your senses to be engaged here and allow yourselves to be vulnerable. By being here, it is likely that you too recognize the desperate need for another path. The Parent Circle members are here to show us one possible path, a path of nonviolence and reconciliation, a path where empathy and compassion are embraced and love is the protagonist. Sam and I are here because we similarly have chosen a path of understanding and seeing each other's humanity. For me, 10/7 triggered a deep familial trauma. I grew up hearing about my grandfather's family who moved to the village of Moza in the late 1800s, just outside Jerusalem. They were poor. My grandfather, Mordechai, would carry water for a neighboring sheikh to make a bit of money for his family. His mother was a caretaker and a midwife, and she would care and birth the children, both in the Jewish village and in the neighboring Palestinian village. These two villages lived side by side and in peace and in mutual respect and in trust. During the uprisings in 1929, with ideas of Zionism catching hold and tensions heightening, one day the Palestinians in the nearby village mobbed my grandfather's home and slaughtered his family. Miraculously, he and a couple of his siblings escaped. He went on to be a founder of Israel, leading a unit to take over Haifa in what would come to be known as the War of Independence, and also the Nakba. It's not until 10/7 that I realized how deep inside of me this trauma lived. It quite literally feels like it's a part of my DNA. And familial traumas like this can live in our histories and futures too. But the stories of our traumas are up for our negotiation in our lives. And our interpretations can draw new meaning and take us down different paths in life. While my grandfather did go on to serve in the IDF in a big way, at one point he even commanded it himself. He never believed in revenge, and all he really wanted was peace. And when I talked to my mother this morning about this story, she told me he never spoke of it, She only learned about it from her mother. She is certain, though, that if he was alive today, he would be part of the parent circle. Which is such a beautiful thing. And she knew that he would also only want this story to be told in hopes of preventing further acts of violence and preserving a common humanity between all the people on this treasured land. So a few weeks after 10/7, with the trauma that I told you about in my mind and a fear about what was happening already, a raging bombardment and a retaliation in Gaza that would take so many more lives and so many more innocent lives, I ran into my friend Sam here on the sidewalk in the outer sunset by my house. Unexpectedly, we embraced a long hug. It was what I think we both needed more than anything in that moment. And in the weeks that followed, we were in constant communication, texting, checking in on each other. We would meet for coffee or for a walk. We would share what was on our mind. Each of us would listen. We were each giving each other the gift of being seen in our identities, in pain, also in shame. We didn't know it at the time, but these moments changed the course of our lives, and it made the work of coexistence, reconciliation, and peace centered to our work in the world. And as we were trying to find a way to talk about this situation in Israel-Palestine in a constructive, non-binary way, we were inspired by an interview we heard on NPR with Saed Atchan, a Palestinian Quaker who's a professor at Swarthmore College in Pennsylvania. And the profound experience he shared of being in class at the Ramallah Friends School during the Second Intifada. He shared that while bullets and grenades were going off all around outside and chaos was ensuing, he was in a class sitting and meeting for worship in silence, much like the silence that we all just sat in. And just imagine that for a moment. And in that moment, this story really stuck with us. And because both Sam and I have personal experience with Quaker meeting for worship, processed through our children's education, we decided to explore how we can use silence and meaningful reflection around a query to bring people from both sides together with the explicit intent of recognizing our shared humanity. We called the meetings Gatherings for Humanity. We have been committed to holding these gatherings weekly for the last 16 months, and this has been a grounding and transformative practice for those of us who attend regularly. And even as our work here has evolved, and it's not always centered directly on Israel or Palestine, we do inward personal development work as well. And we've learned that working on ourselves is the first and most important step to realizing the world we all hope and dream of. As we've been on this path together and as we've become closer, I've found that our stories and experiences share so many similarities and connections. Really, where in the beginning, I felt like maybe our experiences could be different. On a weekly basis, I feel like, wow, we have such similar experiences and connections, and it's brought us quite close, like family.
Yeah, Tal and I have become like brothers through this process of collaborating together, and I'm extremely grateful for his friendship and his willingness to trust me. I've learned so much from being able to engage in conversations with him, and I think he's done the same. I'm the eldest son of Palestinian immigrants. My paternal grandfather came to San Francisco in the late 30s, following the path of many immigrants seeking a better life for his family. He unfortunately died a few years later of pneumonia. My father, who was the youngest of 5, never knew his father. The fallout of the Nakba, the period of the Israeli state formation, resulted in a swell of refugees in the villages of Ramallah and Bethlehem, which is where my parents are from, straining what little food, water, and resources they had. My parents were poor and food insecure, and there was very little opportunity for advancement unless you left. And so they did, one by one, as many immigrant families do. I grew up in San Francisco in the 70s and 80s, and my generation as Palestinians here in the United States was rough, because the only portrayal of Palestinians in the media was one of dehumanization. It was always negative. We were never portrayed in a positive light, and it still seems that today to many of us. I was harassed and bullied as a child. I was called racial slurs that I can't repeat on stage, and this was in Catholic schools. My second grade teacher started calling me Sam because Osama, my given name, was too hard to pronounce and caused the other kids to make fun of me. She was trying to protect me, yet I've come to realize that this was the beginning of my identity being stripped away from me. It was when I realized I was different. I unfortunately accepted it and continued to learn other ways to hide my identity in public so I could fit in. Consequently, I've been living a divided life, with one half of my life, the one at home, immersed in my culture, surrounded by a huge, beautiful, extended family with lots of delicious food and even more love. While the other half, at school, at work, with friends, I decided to blend in. And as I grew older, I realized that I was defying not just my own sense of identity, but also my integrity. And I feel shame over it now. It's taken me years to learn to love myself and to be proud of my heritage. In the last few years, I've been working hard to uncover my hidden wholeness. I've come to realize that I can't bring my best self forward and do my life's work, which is to lead with love, unless I'm whole. I was afraid, and I let the fear get the best of me. And questioning beliefs and fears is at the root of what we're trying to address in our weekly practice. We're trying to create a space where, through silence and focused reflection, we can interrogate the stories we've been telling ourselves and work towards dismantling the parts of those stories that are holding us back and keeping us from being whole. And I know my story is not unique, and that I'm not the only one in this room who has spent lots of money on therapy. Many of my Jewish friends have told me similar stories of hiding their identity. Many have shared that the stories they've been hearing since childhood are why they have either supported or turned a blind eye to Israel's inhumane treatment of Palestinians, knowing deep down that it's wrong and antithetical to their true beliefs. And if you have a shred of conscience, you're likely struggling with this, and likely why you're here tonight. I was recently introduced to an American author named Parker Palmer, who's an educator, an activist, who focuses on education, community building, leadership, spirituality, and social change. He's published 10 books, his most famous, Courage to Teach, and numerous essays and poems, and he's the founder and senior partner emeritus of the Center for Courage and Renewal, and he also happens to be a Quaker. And I'm going to share some quotes from Parker, as his wisdom has given me the language and the framework for understanding my own personal challenge more clearly. His framework has helped me tremendously, and with those that I've shared, has helped them as well. So I'm going to quote Parker. He goes, "We need to avoid operating in the tragic gap. It's the gap between the harsh realities around us and what we know to be possible. We need to learn to stand and act in the tragic gap, knowing that it will never close, refusing to give in to the cynicism that comes from giving over to life's harsh realities, nor to the idealism that comes from floating above the fray of possibilities." He continues, "What is it that prevents us from seeking truth to power, from showing up? It is the knowledge that we will likely be punished if we show up as who we really are and with what we believe." He goes on, and this is so powerful. "No punishment that anyone can lay on us could possibly be worse than the punishment we lay on ourselves by conspiring in our own diminishment, by living a divided life, by acting and speaking on the outside in ways that are not congruent with what we know to be true and just on the inside." And I love this next statement so much that I've pasted it in my notebook and I read it every day as a reminder to what my work needs to be. We so often look outside ourselves for the answers to our problems, neglecting the powers that we have within us and between us. We need to leverage the power of our integrity and the power of a multiplier called community. Powers that have animated great movements and changed the lay and the law of the land. Today, we need to trust those powers to take us where we need to go. He continues, short-term effectiveness cannot be the standard to achieve love, truth, and justice. If you want to do deep work for social change, we need to have faithfulness to our own gifts and opportunities, especially where our gifts can help others. And that's what's so amazing about the Parent Circle and these two courageous women. And the many organizations that are advocating for peace, dignity, and freedom for all. They're showing us another way, a courageous way, and that way is together. Zen Buddhism teaches that beneath all violent anger, shame, and disconnection are fear and sadness. We rage, we humiliate or feel humiliated, and we separate because we're afraid of losing something important to us or because we grieve the experience of having lost something in the past. Beneath this fear and sadness is deep caring for the well-being of ourselves, our loved ones, and the world. But we often haven't learned how to express that caring without causing more suffering. We rage, we humiliate, and we separate because we don't know how to love. Love is the foundation from which better stories emerge, becoming the antidote to fear. Love frees us from being held hostage by generational grief and trauma. Love is the most powerful tool we have, for when we lead with love, we are present, we're curious, we listen with open hearts and open minds. Love gives us the space to see each other as equals and to heal whatever wounds exist between us.
Thanks, Sam. So, I know that the four of us on this stage deeply believe that the only future possible is one in which our griefs and traumas bring us together, to honor each other and to stand as one. There is no them, it's just us. I'm going to share a quote from Hannah Arendt, the Jewish historian and philosopher, who wrote this in her work, The Human Condition. Love, by its very nature, is unworldly, and it is for this reason, rather than its rarity, that is not only apolitical, but anti-political, perhaps the most powerful of all anti-political forces.
Tal and I have chosen love. Layla and Moore have chosen love. We hope you can too. And that's what we hope to inspire tonight. So without further ado, please help us welcome Layla and Moore, who are here to give us hope and to share their story of love.
First of all, I want to thank you all for making this happen and came here tonight to listen to both of us, to share with you, to talk about the situation even in our land. And before that, I want to take a part of what one Palestinian writer said once. His name is Mahmoud Darwish. And he said, the war will end and the leaders will shake their hand. But that mother will be waiting for her beloved son. And that wife will be waiting for her husband. And those children will be waiting for their father. I don't know who sell the land, but I know who pay the price. And we are the people who pay the price every day because of this occupation, because of this conflict. But we try our best to put our effort together to make it change and to try to end this occupation and conflict. So my name is Layla. I'm from Bethlehem. I was born and raised in Jordan because my family, they are originally from Bethlehem. But they went to Jordan because my father, he worked with UN, and they asked him to go to teach the children in the refugees camps in Jordan. But I love Palestine from what I heard from my father. He had thousands of stories about Palestine, about his childhood. And after they went to Jordan, the war was started in 1967, and during that time, as most of you know, that the Israeli government took a decision to close the border so they couldn't return back. But for me, it's become like a dream to return back to my roots, to the land that I came from. After I finished my study in accounting and business, I met my husband. He's originally from Bethlehem too. So I went back to Bethlehem in 1999. And for me, I was really so excited because my dream come true. And I tried to go to everywhere that my father spoke about, meet everyone that my father mentioned. And I thought the life there will be amazing and everything will be beautiful, especially after we have 2 children. But that happiness was ended 11th of April 2002, 4 o'clock in the morning, when my son, Qusay, at that time he was 6 months old, woke up in very critical condition because at that night, the Israeli soldiers came to my village and they threw tear gas, and because of that, he became sick. We live in a village outside Bethlehem, so we tried to take him to a hospital inside Bethlehem, but the Israeli soldiers prevented us, and they said it's a military zone. So the next chance to take him to Hebron, the next city, to Bethlehem, but again, they told us that the main road is closed. So the last chance was to take him, but we should take a rough and long road between villages. But again, for the 3rd time, and Israeli soldiers stopped us for more than 4 hours, tried to check our IDs. We tried to talk to them, we tried to ask them to leave us alone, but they didn't listen, and they stopped us for more than 4 hours. My son between my arms, he dying, and I don't know what to do to save his life, because every minute was so important to save his life. So I start to think to take a risk and talk to them, and that risk will be that if they know that I didn't have a Palestinian ID, because during the second Intifada, the Israeli government prevented us from having it. And when I went to them, start to talk to them, they start make fun of me, and they asked me to stay in the car. So eventually, when we reached the hospital, the doctor said it's too late to save his life, and if he will stay alive, he will be handicapped. A few minutes later, they take him to the intensive unit care, and they even didn't allow us to see him. A few hours later, he died. And I remember when the doctor came to tell me that, I felt his word was like a bullet comes to my heart, smash it down for many pieces. Didn't know what to do, start to cry. As a mother, I always felt that I could protect my son, I could save him. Whatever happened to him, I will be there for him. But that was the moment that I feel hopeless. I couldn't do anything to save his life. I was filled with hatred, anger, because I asked myself why that happened and for what. Like, he's just 6 months old, he didn't commit anything. But at the same time, I didn't think to take revenge, because revenge will never bring him back. And that means that I will bring another innocent people to this cycle of violence, because as a Palestinian, I will never know the names of those soldiers. I will never know where they live. But I take another decision that I don't want to have any kind of relationship with any Israeli person, whatever that cost me. After time, my family, my husband, start to convince me to have other children, but I refused for more than 3 years. And once my doctor asked me, why didn't you want to have other children? I say, why I will have them if finally I will lose them? I don't want to have that experience again. But finally, after 3 years, we have another boy, and I give him the same name, Qusay, because every time I look to his eyes, every time I call his name, I didn't want to forget any details about what happened that day. Time passed, we tried to live, but the life will never be the same. But it's the life we should continue. So after 16 years, I met one of my friends that I didn't saw for a long time, and we started to talk about many things. And then he started to talk about the parent circle and how he joined, and I stopped him. I said, are you crazy? How could you talk to me about this kind of organization? You know what happened to me? And he said, because of that, I want to ask you a question. Why until now you didn't tell your other children about the story of their brother? I said, because I didn't want them to be part of this cycle of violence, because if they know, they start maybe to think to take revenge. I lost one of them, and I'm not ready to lose another one. And then he said, so maybe this will be a great opportunity for you to protect other children, other families. And I thought he's crazy, because I didn't heard about these kind of organization before. And that was so hard for me to accept that. So he kept calling me like every 4 days, 3 days, and repeat the same things. And one day he said to me, look, there's a conference in Bethlehem and you should come. And I said, yeah, of course, just to make him stop talking about that. That day in the morning, I remember I started to find excuse because I don't want to go there. And he called me and he said, get dressed, I'm waiting you in the car because I know you didn't want to go there. I said, oh my God. I should go there just to make him stop talking about this. So when we arrived, it was maybe a room like that big, and there were just Palestinians. We started to talk. Then 5 minutes later, when the Israeli tried to enter that room, I felt something acting in my chest. There was a pain. I didn't want to be with them in the same room, and I tried to leave. So he tried to convince me just to listen to them. Since we were arguing about that, I saw something really amazed me when I saw the Palestinian, the Israeli hug each other, kiss each other, laugh with each other like a family member. And that was the first time I saw something like that. Then I decided just to sit to listen to them because I want to know what's the thing that makes them so close to each other like that. Because in my opinion, they were so crazy to do that. So to hear the stories of the Palestinians, that was a common thing that I know, and I know most of those stories. But to listen to the Israeli and how they lost their beloved ones, I was really touched and moved because that was the first time I heard these kind of stories. For the first time, I felt we share the same pain, we share the same tears, even if we had different circumstances, but we're still human. And nothing worse than losing a child or a family member. And no one could understand that pain unless someone be in the same situation. So I decided to participate in one of the main projects called the Parallel Narrative Project to learn much more about the Israelis. Because as a Palestinian, I just met settlers or soldiers. But to meet bereaved families, I don't have any chance to do that. So this program is about to meet for 8 times during 3 months. We have 2 professors from both sides, Palestinian and Israeli, who spoke about the history of the 2 nations. We went to visit Yad Vashem Museum in Jerusalem to learn much more about the Holocaust. We went even to visit Palestinian village was existed before 1948. It's not about comparing the pain. It's not about say who's right, who's wrong, but it's about to give us a chance to understand each other and to understand about our background too. And I remember the first thing they asked us to do, to talk about something happened and during the conflict affect our life. And that was the first time I spoke about what happened to my son. Even between me and my husband, since his death, we didn't spoke about him. So doing that after 16 years was really so hard for me. It's like to open the wound again, bring the memories back, the pain, the anger. And I couldn't complete the story. I started to cry. And there's an Israeli woman came forward. And she started to apologize. And she said, yeah, I didn't hurt you, but the people who hurt you were my own people. And I'm a mother too. I could understand your pain. I could understand the words that you couldn't say. She came and hugged me. Both of us started to cry. And to be honest, that was the first time I felt someone really cares about me. Someone really could understand my pain, even if I didn't say a word. From that day, I decided to be a member on the forum, start to give lectures at Israel, Palestine, travel around the world to spread the message of peace and reconciliation. And I thought, that's it. And I made the most greatest job. But life didn't leave me alone. 3 years ago, we've been in Jerusalem in a meeting with other NGOs. So after we spoke about our history, our story, there's an Israeli man who stand up, like I know him many years ago, but that was the first time I listened to his story. And then he mentioned that he was a high officer in the army and he served in my area. And he prevented a Palestinian car which have sick children from going to a hospital. Then it's become real. It's become in front of me. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. And start to cry, and one of our friends asked both of us to go outside to talk. Then he said to me, look, Layla, I know this is hard for you, but this is so important for me to tell you that part of my story. And I want to tell you that after time, my son becomes sick, and when I tried to take him to a hospital, the guard stopped me because he wanted to ask me a few questions. I was in a hurry. Then I realized what I did to the Palestinian. He quit from the army. He refused to serve again. They sent him to jail because of that. And when he released, he established another organization called Compassion for Peace with ex-Palestinian prisoners. I looked at him and I said, look, Khin, this is so hard for me to listen to you. But at the same time, I want to thank you that you didn't hide that part of your story. I want to thank you because you have that courage and that honesty to speak in front of me. And I could forgive you. Then I realized this is the real reconciliation. It's so easy to speak about love, peace, and reconciliation. But sometimes we ask ourselves if we really meant every word we say, if we really meant everything we did. And that day I remember a dream I have at the same night when my son died. There's a white dove came and stand on my shoulder and said to me, Mama, don't cry, I'm so happy. I couldn't stop crying from that day until today, every time I think about him or even speak about him, because he's piece of my heart and piece of my soul. But I didn't realize why he came as a white dove. But when I became a member in the forum, I realized that was kind of message from God to tell me, this is your new mission. And he didn't want the death of my son went without achieving something. So that gave me power every day to continue, even in these dark times that we have now. Most of you realize and understand what's going on in Gaza and in Israel, but no one pay attention to what happened in the West Bank. Since the 7th of October until today, we're still under closure. So that meant most of the people who work inside Israel, they lost their jobs. So because of that, the economic situation now in the lowest point in the West Bank. Many children, they couldn't go to school, and if they are lucky enough, they could go for one day in a whole week. We didn't have shelters. Many rockets fell down in the West Bank. We didn't know if it's from Hamas, if it's from Iran, or even from the Israeli Iron Dome, because these kind of rockets will never recognize if you are Palestinian or Israeli. And the worst part of all of these things is the settlers. They attack the Palestinians every day in their houses, in their cars. They burn them. They even attack them in the street. Like last year, we have olive season. Most of the family, they couldn't go to pick their olives. And the other worst part of that, the Israeli army sometimes encourage them or even protect them. But above all of these things, we still have that hope. This will end one day. And we believe that our people deserve to live a normal life like any other people. And God created us to live and to love, as you said. Thank you for listening.
Every time after I hear Layla's story, my heart aches. And I'm deeply sorry for the terrible pain you have experienced caused by my people. I'm so privileged to being here together with you, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart. My name is Mor. I live in Tel Aviv with my husband and 3 children. I was born in Kibbutz Nir Am. It is 2 to 3 kilometers away from the Gaza Strip. My parents later moved to the village of Netiva Asara, which is adjunct to the Gaza border. On October 23, my parents were in their 70s. They were healthy, young, very active, very supportive parents, and the best grandparents one could wish for. My father, Jacobi, he was an agronomist. He was still working full-time. He was an excellent farmer, and also he was training and consulting to farmers in Israel and around the world. My mom, Bilha, she used to be an art teacher, and she was an outstanding artist. On the eve of October 6th, we celebrated the second Sukkot, Jewish holiday. I hosted my entire family in my apartment in Tel Aviv. We were lucky to change our original plan to be at my parents' house for the holiday, and we moved the dinner to my house, actually, the day before. We had a wonderful evening. We were laughing, eating, dancing, playing together, and around midnight, my parents headed back to their house in the village of Netiva Asara, which is 1 hour drive from Tel Aviv. The morning of October 7th, started for me. My sister woke me up. She called me, telling me that there was something going on in the south and that she was afraid and concerned about my parents. It was very unusual to me because usually I get up on the Saturdays to go jogging, and also we didn't wake up to the sirens which went off in Tel Aviv at 6:30. Later on I thought that maybe my body knew it needed a good night's sleep to be able to cope with the situation. We turned on the television, and I saw the Hamas Toyota Jeeps riding inside the roads of Israel. And I remember that I intuitively told my husband that my parents were not going to survive this day. We had a WhatsApp message from my dad from 7:34 saying that they were in their safe house, hearing shootings, gunfires from all directions, and that they didn't know what was going on. I called them, and there was no answer. After some time, we were able to contact my parents' neighbor over WhatsApp. She told us that they were hiding below the staircase in their house, hearing Arabic in the outside. And a couple of hours later, she called us, telling us that she was able to peek out her window and that she saw that my parents' house was completely burned down and that she didn't know what was going on. We felt very helpless, but at the same time became quite functional. We felt we are 5 siblings, so we felt we needed to be together. And we all gathered at my sister's house. And after, we didn't get any formal notification, but around 6 p.m., we were able to connect the dots ourselves. And we knew that my parents were no longer with us. In retrospect, we learned that around 7:45, the exact same time when my sister woke me up, 2 Hamas people entered my parents' house, shot them, and set the house on fire. Because we knew that my parents were not going to have the traditional Jewish burial, we decided to start sitting Shiv'ah on the morning of October 8th. We were the first Shiv'ah of the October 7th victims because most people were waiting for the funerals. And it was, remember, I was basically in a state of shock. Not only that I lost both of my parents at the same time, so suddenly and under such brutal circumstances, but my entire self sense of self-security was gone. It was very, very difficult. However, during the Shiva, my siblings and I came out with a very clear voice to please not revenge the death of our parents. And we made this call, we were very vocal about it. We thought that revenge, the death of our parents, would just bring more violence and will just escalate this cycle of violence even further and will bring more death on both sides. This day changed my life. I was not a peace activist before October 7th. I was working in the Israeli high-tech industry for many, many years, living in Tel Aviv, in some kind of a bubble. I thought I had a very good life. I was probably the typical product of the Israeli education system. We learned about the history of the Zionist movement and the establishment of Israel after the Holocaust, mainly from the perspective of the Jewish people. We thought, or we were taught, that we needed to have a strong Israel, so the sense of helplessness that we experienced as people would never repeat itself, and that we had, we took Israel's existence for granted. I did know there were Palestinians. I knew there was occupation, but it didn't have a direct impact on my everyday life. And October 7th was a wake-up call for me. A wake-up call for me to wanting to learn more about the occupation, to learn more about the parallel narrative of the Palestinians, to get to know or to try to understand how come such a brutal event, how could it happen? What's in this land that can bring about such an event? And a few months afterwards, I joined the Parent Circle because I felt that in order to really understand what's going on, I need to be in a direct dialogue with people like Laila and with other Palestinians who went through, who lost their loved ones and still believe in dialogue, in getting to know the other side and in reconciliation. And this is why I decided to join the Parent Circle. I then volunteered to become a board member, and I was nominated to be the president, the chairperson of the board. And this gave a totally new meaning to my life.
Thank you both so much for sharing that. We're going to ask a couple questions, Sam and I, and then we're also going to try and get as many questions from the audience answered as possible. So if you have questions that you're writing, hand them down to the end of your rows, and we'll try and get as many of them answered as we can. One of the most significant, just amazing things to sit here and watch is the two of you sitting next to each other and sharing your stories and looking at each other. And I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the Parent Circle's work in Israel, Palestine, especially in light of all the barriers that exist there that keep you from doing that work together, and also what it's like for you to do the work abroad.
So unfortunately, I'm a new member. So unfortunately, I don't know in person the activities that we had before October 7th. Of course, I knew about the Parent Circle, but unfortunately, after October 7th, no Palestinians can get permit to travel into Israel. So it is very difficult for us to have in-person meetings. So we meet, most of the time we meet on Zoom, but we do have joint events because Israelis can still go to some parts of Palestine, especially to Area C. This is an area that most Israelis feel confident or comfortable going. So we do have meetings in Bejala, where our Palestinian office is located. And we have some kind of community events. We invest a lot in our staff. Really think about it, to be able to work together. The staff is half Israeli, half Palestinians, so to be able to work together after October 7th, this is a kind of a miracle. And we invest in the staff, we invest in the community, in the members of the communities, so we are able to continue communicating. And it doesn't mean that we agree about everything. We have disagreements, but we do work and we develop the tools so we can have difficult conversations with each other, and we can communicate about the issues.
Maybe I speak about the main project, which called Parallel Narrative Project. It's the main one. And the other thing is the dialogue meeting. Everywhere we could do it, at schools, and anyone will invited us, we will go there. And even we have a women group, and we have many projects with women because we believe that women have a great power to make a change and to give them even sometimes courses to learn new things about what they love. So we have that project, we called it Wedding Planners. One day we asked women what kind of things you would like to do. So every woman started to talk about something. And so some of them want to make cakes or decoration or to be designer. So we have that thought to make that a project. So most of those women, they start to take courses to be much more educated, to know how to make their own project. So after they finish, they have certificate, and we start to think to make like a fake wedding, to make everyone be connected to that project and to show everyone what we did. But unfortunately, then the 7th of October happened and we couldn't do that. But many women who have those kind of courses, they start to establish their own project at their homes. And they start even to train their neighbors, their children. There's many, many educated women, but they didn't have a chance to go out to work because of their children or some reasons. So this is one of the things that give them a chance to make their income, especially nowadays after the 7th of October and the closure, so they could help their family to increase the income. We have the summer camp for children from age 14 until 18, because we believe that this is the most age that we should work with and give them even a chance to think, to learn from each other.
I would like to add that one of the main projects we had before October 7th, we call it the dialogue meetings in high schools. And we used to go one Israeli member together with a Palestinian member and hold the similar conversation that Laila and I are having here with you now, and do it in high schools. And the objective was to show, mainly to Israeli high school students, to get them to know the parallel narrative, to get them to know the Palestinian, and to speak together about how we can improve, how can we be in better dialogue. And unfortunately, with the current administration in Israel, this was banned, and we are not allowed to go into high schools anymore. We fought it in Supreme Court and we won, but then after a couple of months, again, they banned us again, and we decided, because of legal advice that we received, not to fight it anymore. And this is very sad, but it makes us work harder, and we need to invest more efforts in getting to the audience and to have these dialogue meetings in other outlets. So we don't give it up. We just need to work much harder to get our messages across.
Thank you.
It's honestly incredible that you have found a way to overcome these barriers and to be here today. Honestly, I mean, I'm in awe of the strength that you have and the mutual respect and adoration that you have when I see you look at each other. It's beautiful. I wanted to ask you about these walls, these barriers, right? There's these physical barriers. There's the wall, right, that keeps you from being able to actually meet a bereaved family, right? Your only engagement is with an Israeli soldier or a settler who's a threat. And there's even more complicated barriers that exist, those emotional barriers that are prevent both sides, either side, from seeing each other in a human way. How do we overcome this? How do we find a way of breaking down these emotional barriers so that we can actually recognize and see each other's humanity more fully?
There's another kind of walls of hatred, anger, and knowing each other. So we believe that the work that we did in the parent circle, it's like to put the cracks on those walls to make it down. We believe this will happen one day. We didn't know when, we didn't know how, but that will happen one day. But we didn't want to just sit side and waiting our leaders to do something, because we're waiting them for more than 76 years to do something. And until now, everything become much worse and worse. We didn't our children, our grandchildren, to live the same life. We try to do our best, even if it's that like to take a water from ocean with teaspoon. But we believe that step by step, we could do something. Because if we looked at our organization, it was like just a thought in the mind of a man. But now we are more than 800 families and more than thousands of people who participate. They are not bereaved, but they came just to learn and to understand.
So for me, I think in the way of the parent circle is to work and do the conviction through personal stories. So a lot of times I'm being told by friends, how can you do that? There is no one at the other end, at the other side that would like to have peace. There are no innocent people in Gaza. We wish we had peace, but we don't have anyone to talk to. We want peace, but they don't want to be in discussion. And for me, I'm like, how can you tell me that there is no one at the other side? Because there is Laila on the other side, and there is Ahmed on the other side, and there are so many people that I know personally and I'm in relationship with, and I speak on the phone with them and I WhatsApp with them, and we are in a dialogue, and I know that they also want to have good life and that they deserve good life. So we lead through our personal stories and we lead by example.
How do we amplify your stories, these stories? Because there's a competition for storytelling now, and there's so many storytellers, and it's so hard to discern between the propaganda and the conspiracy theories and the various narratives that we've been told, since childhood. How do we not let those dominate and let your story be the dominant story?
So, Laila, are you real? Yeah. Laila is real. And by you coming here to listen to us, you are already helping to amplify our message and our story. And this is, I think, the best you can do to assist us. Share our story, invite us to speak in any engagement you can think of. We will be there, or others from our organization will be there. And we are real people.
And maybe that's a call. Maybe that's a call to action to all of us in this room. You know, we need to tell different stories. We need to tell stories that are allowing light in, as opposed to just darkness.
I want to add something. I found this is a little bit funny. Like when we've been told to come here to United States to give you hope. We are the people who suffered from this war to came to give you hope. But at the same time, I know that you, or even the campuses, what happened there, and they fight always about that. So what I'm gonna say that, how could this help me or help more? If you pro-Israel or if you pro-Palestine, how that could help us? And if you fight between each other, I know that you have enough trouble in your country to deal with. So we always said, if you are not part of the solution, please don't be part of the problem and leave us alone.
Boy,
Okay.
we've got
We got a lot of questions.
We're not going to
get to all of them, but we're going to get to.
We are women and we are mothers, and we can be effective.
Yeah.
Let's start.
Should we give you 4 questions at a time?
One by one, and we.
So I think to start with this question, there's such a imbalance of power between Israelis and Palestinians, not in every possible way, in how Layla, you're even able to move around. One of the questions is, how does the Parents Circle navigate this? How does the organization address this and work through this?
It's a very, very good question. We recognize the imbalance. We decided to be an equal organization in everything. So we have 2 co-directors for the organization. We have Israeli staff and Palestinian staff. We have a joint board. We take all the decisions together. Some of our projects, they lean more towards the Palestinian audience. For example, with all the solidarity work that we do, taking care of going back to school packages or food packages will only be done on the Palestinian side, and we don't do any solidarity work in Israel. Again, we feel that we do what we can, at least in our organization, to be equal. As an Israeli, this difference is very difficult for me. And many times I sit at home and I'm thinking about my Palestinian partners and how more difficult their life is. Even now I'm thinking about Layla, that I'm going back to Israel and Layla has to go through Jordan and then from Jordan to Bejala, and her journey is so much more difficult than mine. And I try to breathe, and I'm saying to myself that some of this is beyond my control. So I'm doing everything I can, and we speak about it transparently.
We are not a political organization. We just speak human to human, a person to person, who lost their beloved ones, to send an international message to everyone. If we are the people who suffered daily from this occupation, if we are the people who lost their beloved ones, could stand side by side and put our effort together to make it change, everything could be possible.
Thank you.
I'm particularly fond of this question because I have 2 young daughters. And I think there's probably a lot of parents here, yeah? I'm a high school teacher and find my students live in media bubbles that only present one angle on the story. How do we open up our young people to understand complexity and nuance?
I think if you try to tell them what you hear tonight about our stories as a mothers, because even in Palestine and Israel, we have a different media. But what I said, what I saw on the TV, it's not the same that more so. So we have different news, we have different social media news even. And most of the time I tell my children, don't believe everything in the social media because there's fake news, there's sometimes a fake page which try to change some of reality. But we heard stories from the people themselves, like we have many Palestinian members who lost many of their beloved ones in Gaza. Like one of our members, she lost the whole family of her sister. Her sister, her husband, all the children or the grandchildren. Sometimes people from Israel said, how could that come? All these numbers, like 52,000 people killed in Gaza. I said, because many people, they have that thought, if we have been killed, we want to be together. So there's many families have been finished. These kind of stories we heard from the people themselves. So because of that, we believe it. And I know it's hard sometimes to believe other things if you not live in that area.
Okay, thank you. So, another question from the audience. What do you say to people who see your work as normalization? This is probably a question.
Okay. After the war, one of my cousins came to my house and she started to make fun of me and she said, is this the beast that you are talking about? This is normalization, and she started to talk about many things, and I know that anger where it came from, and I was being there one day. So sometimes we should just listen to the others and then understand why they said that. So I look at her and I said, first of all, we are not the leaders to decide when we could make war or peace. And I want to ask you a question. Where did your father, before the 7th of October, work? And she said, in Jerusalem. I said, with whom? And she said, with the Jewish man. I said, how their relationship? She said, they have a great relationship. I said, so this is normalization? And she didn't know what to say. I said, the problem sometimes, we know the words, but we didn't know the definition of it. So please, before you say any word, just think about it and read about it. And that's it. Because even sometimes we have difficult discussions. When we spoke about our work in the parent circle, that didn't mean that we agree about everything. We have really very hard discussion, even in this journey, because this is the first time I have a chance to meet more. Imagine that I couldn't meet her in Palestine and Israel, but I could come here to meet her. But we sit, we discuss few things. But I could understand that. I could understand where this comes from. When she explained that, I could accept it and I respect it because she's been open, she's been honest. And I feel honesty is the first key of all of this. To talk about the things at it. Don't make it like pumpy, as they said. Just speak about it.
Shall we tell them the example?
Of course.
It's quite intimate. But the first time I told my parents' story, I said that in retrospect we learned that 2 Hamas terrorists entered my parents' house and murdered them. And the words terrorists and murder were very difficult for Layla to relate to. And at the beginning, I was very resentful, and I was thinking, but they were terrorists, and they entered my parents' house with no permission, and they shot them purposely, so isn't it a murder? And we had a very good and honest conversation about it, and I respected Layla's position that maybe there were terrorists, maybe also the Israeli soldiers sometimes become terrorists. When do freedom fighters become terrorists? Where is the line? When does killing become a murder? Where is the line? And I agreed to, I thought that I would better tell the story without these two words, not because it changed the reality of what happened in my mind, but because I respect the association that these words were for Layla.
Yeah, that's we had the pleasure of having coffee with the two of you yesterday, and I think when you guys talked about your disagreements, I felt like the power of you traveling together and being together and working through those disagreements. I took it away as an incredible, powerful thing. Sam, go ahead if you.
This next question, thank you for your courage and inspiration. What can we be doing here now to support your efforts? I'm so concerned about the proposed plans for Israel-Gaza by the US president. He will not be named. As we're dealing with our own crisis in our own country right now.
So I think you have many things to do. First of all, to tell the stories that you heard tonight to everyone in your community, to your friends, to your relatives, to tell them that there's people who want to end this occupation. They want to live together side by side because they deserve that. And the other thing, if you could, I know this is hard to convince Trump or
He's
the
named.
government. If he could invest all that money that he spent to send weapons to our country and invest it in peace buildings to build peace between us, that will be the greatest thing could happen to both of us.
Of course, you can also support, and not necessarily the Parent Circle Family Forum. There are other great organizations who are pro-peace, pro-dialogue, pro-reconciliation. Just naming a few are Standing Together, Combatants for Peace, Women Wage Peace, Women of the Sun. So anything you could do to support either our organization or any other organization that is working towards reconciliation and peace together, I think this will be very meaningful. And as we said before, instead of taking a side and instead of leaning to one of the extremes, if you can just push all of us to be pro-dialogue, pro-solution, to end this war yesterday, and to stop the occupation and get into a political agreement, I think this can be done. And it was done in other places in the world. If there is a will, there is a way. And this is something that we need, all of us, to continue believing in it and talking about it and amplifying this message.
I'm just gonna share one piece of graffiti that was my favorite piece of graffiti on the wall in Bethlehem. It's very close to my grandma's house. in Bethlehem. I think it's another thing that we can all do, and it's to make hummus, not walls.
Yeah.
And I say that sincerely. You know, Tala and I are feeders, and break bread. Get together with, bring Jews and Palestinians together at the table, and eat hummus together. Don't argue about where it's originally from, because
I think that's, on that note, I think we should settle out.
Okay.
Sam, yeah, go for it.
Thank you all. I'd like to invite Orly and Lior up, who are going to say a few words. But before they share words, we'd like to settle out with another minute of silence, just to kind of like let everyone absorb what you've all taken in tonight. Thank you all so much. Tala and I will be milling around afterwards. I love his cookies so much. If anyone's interested or intrigued to attend our gatherings, they're held every Thursday morning. We typically start to gather around 8:45 and settle in around 9, and go until about 10:30. We'll be able to take your email and add you to the list and get the information to you. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you all.
And huge thanks to you, Maura and Layla.
Hello, everyone. I just have to start by saying what an honor it is to be part of this program tonight. Really, the spirit of everything that you bring today is what inspired me to get into this work. As my friend Alex, somewhere in the audience here, knows, I was involved in Jewish-Palestinian dialogue in San Francisco before I came to the New Israel Fund, and it really, I think, was a huge part of what inspired me to dedicate the last 2 decades to this work. So thank you to all of you. I have endless admiration and awe of what you discussed and what you do. I want to thank all of you for being here and just really emphasize the power of hearing and witnessing this conversation, and not just that you can take this back with you, but to think of yourselves as partners to the Israelis and Palestinians on the ground who are doing this work endlessly, and there are many, even in this very dark time when the headlines can probably make us all want to cry or go back to sleep and wish for something else. There are so many incredible organizations and activists, and NIF is very proud to support the Parents Circle, and we're very proud to support dozens of Jewish Arab Shared Society organizations that model the potential for a different future. Today, our work is so much about both having the vision, the actual ability to envision something else. And even if it's not tomorrow, and even if it's not feeling like it's very soon, to actually have a plan in place for what an alternative future of peace for Jews and Palestinians, for Israelis and Palestinians, so that we can end this cycle of violence. And the other piece is blocking the efforts at annexation, the terrible violence and dehumanization of Palestinians especially, the terrible anti-democratic legislation, and on and on. And those two strategies together inform everything we do. And I just want to tell you all that there's, many of you already support the New Israel Fund or support these organizations, and thank you to all of you. I hope that you'll look at us as a resource locally here in the Bay Area if you're trying to find out more about these kinds of activities on the ground and how you can be involved and learn more. And I want to commend Robert Fram. I'm not sure exactly where you are. I think you're over there. But you were the inspiration behind this event. You got so many people involved and just put your heart into making this such an incredible, incredible showing. So I've loved seeing everything that you've built from a few conversations we had a year plus ago, and I'm so grateful to the Kitchen Shared Society group and to all the organizations that were part of today, and to the JCC for hosting us, and to the Parent Circle. Last but not least, some of you know that we have our biggest annual event, so I want to just let people know, if you haven't already, we have flyers outside. On May 4th, we have our Guardian of Democracy Gala here in this space and in the outside space. So if you're interested, you can grab a flyer. And if you have more questions for me, come find me after the program. Thank you. Thanks to all of you.
Hi, everyone. I also want to say thank you to all of you, to the JCC, the Kitchen, and to NIF for making this possible, and of course, to Tal, Sam, Layla, and more for sharing your stories so vulnerably. I will keep this short, but I do want to just say, after hearing these, and they kind of alluded to what your role is and what it looks like after we leave, share their stories, share your stories, be an extension for this work here in the Bay Area. If you feel so inclined, support us either with donations or by helping to amplify these voices that need to be heard. We, in just 2 weeks, are doing a joint memorial ceremony honoring our shared grief and our shared hope, and I hope you will join us. It will be here screened at the JCC from Israel, Palestine. And yeah, thank you, everyone. There are refreshments and cookies outside thanks to Loquat. So thank you all for being here.